Seriously, let's be friends. You're friendly. I'm friendly. Come on. Do you want to hug it out? Aww. All right, this week for Klatt Back, we're going to try something a little different. We're going to try to hug it out. Okay, so let's hug it out with UCF football. So UCF, they took a little exception, and like I get it, but their official account took exception with my top 10. And in my top 10 that I tweet out every single week at Joel Klatt on Twitter, I give an almost category. And that almost category is the teams that I considered for that 10th spot. UCF was, of course, one of the teams that I was considering for inclusion into that top 10, and so they fell into the almost category. I didn't quite put them into the top 10. And UCF football took exception and said almost with quotes, and it was a good tweet. And then you had like mute this conversation circled. It was clever, it was well done. But what you got to understand, like once you like step in, now you're fair game. So I don't really care if you're an official account or not. I don't really care if you're an official college football program account, you know, whatever it is. So I gave you some reasons why I didn't put you into the top 10. And I get it. Listen, some of these reasons could be held against teams that were in my top 10. I said that, hey, you'd been outgained 3 times. And by the way, it's in 3 straight games. And there's teams in the top 10 that have been outgained in 3 games, and I'm well aware of that. I also said that you gave up 670 yards against Temple, which was a Temple school record. That's a true statement. None of those other teams in the top 10 had given up 670 yards. I also said you've been struggling with penalties. You're in the, I think, bottom 5 in the FBS in terms of penalties per game. You know, that's factual. I also said that of your opponents that you faced, only one of them has a winning record against FBS opponents. That's the truth. So these were part of the arguments, and I did it a little tongue-in-cheek. Keep on trucking, UCF. I got nothing against you. And all of a sudden, it's been thrown out there. It's like, oh, I hate UCF. I think UCF is terrible. Let's clear the air. Why don't we? Okay, let's hug it out. You want to hug it out? Come on, bring it in. Let's bring it in for this. I think UCF is really good. I considered them in the top 12 to 15 teams in the country, maybe top 11 to 15 teams in the country. That means that I think you, UCF football, you're better than 51, 52 Power 5 teams in the country. That's really good, right? You have obstacles that those other teams don't have via recruiting, budget. Budget is a huge one because it directly affects your staff and how you recruit players and what you're recruiting to. And you're overcoming all of that. And your kids have done a great job. And unfortunately, this whole dialogue takes away from what the kids have done on the field. And I get it. The 21 games is fantastic. I tend to be a person that just looks at the current season. I happen to think that this version of UCF football this year is not quite as good of a team as last year's version, in particular with the NFL talent that we saw come off of that team. But that's just an opinion. And now let's get to the point where I'm telling you, I don't think you're bad. So stop telling me that I do, because I don't. I think that you're a really good football team that's achieving at a very high level. Now, your problem might be with the fact that I don't think you deserve inclusion into the top 4 into the college football playoff. And that is true. That is how I view that situation. And that is my opinion. That's my analysis on that situation. It derives from any number of factors. One of those factors, by the way, is totally out of my control. All right? And that factor is the rules by which we include teams in the college football playoff, which, by the way, I don't like either. They say that we have to include the 4 best teams in college football. And right now, I just don't think that UCF is one of the 4 best teams in college football. That doesn't mean I think you're bad. It just means I don't think you're one of the 4 best. So when you come at me and hound me about the fact, like, how can you not believe that well, then I'm going to give you reasons why I don't think you're one of the 4 best teams. Doesn't mean I think you're bad. I think you're very good. Very good. And I don't want this back and forth, UCF, to get in the way of what your kids are achieving on the football field. Because let's keep the main thing the main thing. The current model is what we should be fighting against. The current model of just the 4 best is what I'm fighting against, is what you're fighting against. So let's keep the main thing, because if we fight together, maybe we can get it changed. I think it should be the 4 most deserving teams in the country, which means you would just take the 4 best champions. You would include Notre Dame if they won 11 games. You'd take the best group of 5 team, and you'd put those 6 teams or 7 teams in a ring, and then you would say, okay, let's take the 4 best teams from those 7. Now, even at that point, I don't think you would get into the top 4, but that remains to be seen at a later date. UCF, you're a good football program. Your kids are doing unbelievable things on the football field. Let's not get into these knockdown dragouts on Twitter just so that you can gain clicks, all right?